Hey guys, so ketogenic diets and vegan ketogenic diets, is that even possible? Is it even safe? Is it even healthy? So that's what I'm talking about today. A few of you have asked me for this, and I don't know, I think I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't really care, honestly. And then I somehow stumbled upon a what I ate today vegan keto video, and it was pretty intriguing. And so, yeah, I figured I would do this video. So to start off with, I'll just go through ketogenic and the claims and all that stuff. And then towards the end of the video, I'll get into vegan keto and whether or not it is possible and healthy. So for those who don't know, a ketogenic diet is a low carb diet. It is just a very, very low carb diet. So like 20 to 50 max grams of net carbs per day. It's also lots and lots of fat. So the majority of calories are coming from fat. So it's pretty much the opposite of like a low fat, high carb diet. Moderate amounts of protein. So a typical ratio of macros would be something like 70 to 80% coming from fat, 15 to 20% coming from protein, and 5 to 10% coming from carbs. So this diet, this very, very low carb diet, results in ketosis, which is just your body is basically burning fat for fuel instead of glucose because you don't really have much, right? You're not eating a whole lot of carbs, which leads to a buildup of ketones. So this is usually a short-term diet just to get like a bunch of weight off pretty quickly because it's very, very restrictive and negative side effects are pretty common. If you look at like the Atkins plan, they have the different phases. This is basically phase 1 and phase 2 of their 4-phase plan. To give you an idea of just how low in carbs this is my last what I ate today. This was about 2,300 calories. I was still breastfeeding at the time, and I got about equal amounts of carbs and fats, so 44% of each, and still, even with this diet and all the fat I ate, I got 183 net carbs. So that's over 3.5 times the upper limit for a ketogenic diet. And here's what a typical ketogenic diet looks like. So a fair amount of meat, eggs, stuff like that, oil, lots of heavy whipping cream, lots of butter, and lots of a fair amount at least of vegetables as well. Specific vegetables though, you want non-starchy vegetables and vegetables with really low carbs, really low net carbs. So things like spinach and celery, bok choy. So why would anyone do this? Why would anyone subject themselves to this sort of diet, right? Just this very restrictive diet. And, the counting, it's not calorie counting, but having to measure everything by the gram, right? To see like how many grams of carbs are in everything. You have to do that when you're aiming for such a low number, a low range, right? Like, why would anyone do this? Obviously, it's because people are getting fatter. And why are they getting fatter? Duh, it's because we're eating too many carbs. Or maybe not. But yeah, a lot of people do believe that just as long as they get the carbs out of their diet, they'll lose weight. And look, also people want to do it because being told that you can eat all the saturated fat you want and you don't have to count calories and you'll still lose weight, it's pretty appealing. So how does a ketogenic diet facilitate weight loss? What do the advocates for ketogenic diets say? Well, they will say that it is actually ketosis. It's being in the state of ketosis that actually suppresses appetite. But the truth is, we don't really know that for sure. This recent meta-analysis on ketogenic diets and very low calorie diets, it actually does make a fairly good case for ketosis itself suppressing appetite. Basically, they say that, look, both high fat ketogenic diets and these very low calorie diets that are not high in fat, both of them seem to suppress appetite when these people are surveyed. So that's a pretty good case that it is the ketosis itself, since both groups, right, both people following a ketogenic diet and also people who are eating just a very, very, very low calorie diet, both groups are going into ketosis. So that may be an indicator that it is the ketosis that is causing the appetite suppression. But again, and as the researchers say, we don't know for sure. It could definitely be that ketosis really doesn't have much to do with that, and that really why people are able to lose weight on this diet is just due to limiting carbs. One great way to lose weight, this is something that obesity experts talk about, is to avoid as much as possible highly palatable foods that are this, perfect mixture of sugar and fat and salt. And a ketogenic diet does that by getting rid of the sugar, right? I mean, something like a burger is much less appealing without the fluffy, sugary bun, right? So now onto the more sensational health claims, because this wouldn't be a true fringe diet without some awesome, sensational, exaggerated health claims, right? The cures cancer and diabetes and, whatever else. Starting with cancer, some do say that a ketogenic diet can help prevent cancer, although there's no evidence for that. And, it's probably unlikely given the high amount of saturated fat in a typical ketogenic diet. We do know that saturated fat has been linked to an increased risk for various different cancers. There's also the super sensational claim that a ketogenic diet beats chemo for almost all cancers, but this hasn't been substantiated either. But there are several clinical trials going on right now. So diabetes, there is some evidence for ketogenic diets being effective for people with diabetes. Again, like low carb diets in general. I talked about this in my What the Health critique. And I also talked about, look, any diet that results in weight loss will be effective in terms of improving glycemic control. There are also some mental health claims, it helps with depression, bipolar disorder, things like that. Maybe there's not a whole lot of research to go on here, a lot of low quality stuff, case reports and animal studies. It does make sense that keto would help with bipolar disorder though, because anti-seizure drugs can often help with bipolar, and keto is essentially an anti-seizure diet in that it actually does reduce seizures. And that is the one well-supported claim. Epilepsy, ketogenic diets are actually effective. They're actually an effective treatment for treating seizures. Yeah, some kids are actually put on the diet for a couple years. It's very risky. You can look up, there's example diets you can find, and it's a lot of heavy whipping cream, not very much protein at all, because again, a ketogenic diet is not focused on protein, it's focused on fat. So there is an increased risk for these kids not growing properly. So yeah, it's definitely something that the parent would have to discuss with the pediatrician and make sure that the benefits outweigh the risks, right? So now on to, is it healthy? Is a standard ketogenic diet healthy? No, it's not, because it is full of saturated fat, and the consensus overwhelmingly is that saturated fat is a risk factor for heart disease. And negative symptoms are common, although apparently these are usually short-lived and can be ameliorated just by drinking enough water or getting enough electrolytes. Keto flu, you basically feel fatigued and achy, kind of like you have the flu, headaches, bad breath, leg cramps. In the long term, again, as I already mentioned with children, with adults too, you can run across nutrient deficiencies if the diet is not properly formulated and properly supplemented as well. So for instance, I just Googled keto diet plan, and these were two of the first results that came up. So I plugged them both into Chronometer, and both were low in fiber, calcium, potassium, and various other nutrients. And again, not to mention really high in saturated fat, no surprise there. Eating more non-starchy vegetables, particularly more leafy greens like collards that are low in net carbs, but pretty high in calcium and other nutrients. This would really, really help. And taking a multi obviously would be helpful as well, probably a really good idea, but neither of these are going to help with the saturated fat. There's also some evidence, anecdotal evidence, and some research suggesting that ketogenic diets are not really compatible with high intensity anaerobic exercise. Not that you have to do HIIT or anything to be healthy, but if you're someone who does that frequently, you might not be able to do it with as much intensity if you are eating a ketogenic diet. And finally, negative effects on mental health. This is total speculation on my part. I don't think there's any evidence to support this, but with any restrictive diet, particularly a very restrictive diet, there is the risk of negative mental side effects, particularly regarding like socializing. And look, a diet that requires you to meticulously count carbs, at least in the beginning, for a while, count carbs and weigh your food. It may, lead to obsession or even like disordered eating in people who are prone to that. Again, that's pure speculation on my part, but I think it seems fairly reasonable. So that is a ketogenic diet. And, as I said in my last video, like ketogenic, low carb, paleo, all that stuff, they're really and low fat, like they're really two sides of the same coin. Overzealous advocates cherry picking studies, they rely heavily on anecdotes, they make really, really exaggerated health claims, and they both reel people in by telling them that, hey, you don't have to count calories, right? It's really appealing. Like, just eat all the carbs you want or eat all the fat you want, and you'll just automatically lose weight. And if you don't, well, you did it wrong. The truth is more complex, as I also said in my last video. Some people find it easier to lose weight and maintain that weight loss, limiting fat, some limiting carbs, and the rest of us just, somewhere in the middle, just kind of eating a sensible diet and not really worrying about macros. And then look, there are other people who struggle to lose weight and keep the weight off no matter what they eat. But of course, saying this diet might work for you, but there's a good chance that it won't, is probably not going to sell very many books. Okay, so now on to the interesting stuff. Vegan keto, is it even possible? If it is, like, what is it? How do you do it? So as I've already mentioned, the biggest problem with keto, besides of just how restrictive it is the amount of saturated fat. If you are doing a typical keto diet and eating, animal products and heavy whipping cream and butter and coconut oil, stuff like that. But is it possible to develop, again, a keto diet that's low in saturated fat, where you're getting, less than 10% of your total calories coming from saturated fat? Yes, it is possible, which is cool. And another cool thing, you pretty much have to eat vegan. Although that's not to say that a vegan keto plan is automatically low in saturated fat. Not at all. In fact, if you look up vegan keto, you will find a lot of recipes like I did that contain tons of coconut milk and coconut oil. So a vegan keto diet tends to be pretty high in saturated fat as well. In order to make a ketogenic diet low in saturated fat, you have to avoid animal products and you have to avoid coconut as well, coconut milk, coconut oil, all that stuff, because again, you're eating so many calories from fat, 70% of your calories from fat. Well, where's that going to come from? It's going to come from nuts, it's going to come from oils, and even non-coconut, non-animal based oils and fats, they still have some saturated fat. Even nuts, even almonds, walnuts, they still have some saturated fat. And when you're eating that many, you're not eating an ounce, you're eating ounces a day, it all adds up. Point is, not only can a vegan keto diet be done, but it can actually be done more healthfully with less saturated fat. So that is pretty cool. So to show you just kind of an example, and again, I'm not a keto expert by any means. I'm sure there will be people in the comments criticizing whatever I did, but this is what I came up with just to kind of show you. So here it is. This is about 2,000 calories, no coconut whatsoever. And also, instead of using olive oil, I replaced that with safflower oil, which is about half of the saturated fat. So the saturated fat is only 19.2 grams, so that's pretty cool. So, I mean, it goes to show just how much saturated fat is in things like, what do we have here? Like walnuts and pumpkin seeds, and yeah, I mean, like healthy plant foods, there's still some saturated fat. Net carbs, 30.2, so about half of total carbs, which means there's a good amount of fiber here. I think the recommended is 25 to 30 grams per day, so that's pretty cool. Plenty of omega-3s, 11.6, coming up from all the walnuts and the hemp seeds that I put in this thing. Plenty of protein as well, even though there's no beans, no legumes at all, except for the tofu, 120 grams of tofu, and I have the Trader Joe's high protein tofu here because I love that stuff. It's a little bit more expensive, but there's like barely any water in it, so you don't have to press it at all. You can just put it right in the pan with some oil, and it's so great. Even pressing, I cannot get it as firm as this. So I really love this stuff. That's the only legume, and even still, you totally meet all your protein needs, even your lysine needs, just from all the nuts and stuff. So that's pretty awesome. But yeah, it's still lacking in various vitamins and minerals. But if we put in the Diva multi, you'll see it's much better. Pretty much everything is covered except for sodium, which obviously you're going to add some salt, right? Like to the, I've got like a stir fry type thing here and a salad type thing. Obviously you're going to add some salt. But yeah, the potassium is still low and the choline is still pretty low as well. So what I would do for potassium is use some light salt. Use a teaspoon of that per day, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not that much. Again, you're going to be adding some here and there with the various meals. So it's really not that not that much. And you can see here, pretty much meets your potassium needs bang on. So that's pretty cool. And sodium as well, that's almost 2 grams. So that's totally fine. But again, choline is still low. So the only way you can really do that is just by adding a choline supplement and just one every other day, like 500 milligrams every other day, and then you should be good on choline. You could also raise your net carb some, because again, it's 20 to 50 and this is only at 30. So you still have like 20 more. I'm saying this like I'm recommending this. I'm not recommending this diet. I'm just trying to create something that's at least partially reasonable and seeing if it's doable. But yeah, so there's still 20 more net carbs. So, good choline sources are things like basically soy and broccoli are really good sources. There are other sources as well. Peanut butter, I think. So you could add more tofu, more broccoli. Now you're probably going to have to reduce the calories. Again, I'm making this based on me, what I typically shoot for. So like 2,000 calories if I'm exercising, and all of these amounts as well, the RDAs, they're based on for women. So zinc here, I have like 8. So if you're a dude, you're going to need a little bit more than that, but you're also going to be eating more calories. So yeah, you'd still have to, that's the thing with this diet, you're still going to have to play around because you don't want to eat too many calories. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in ketosis or not. Too many calories is too many calories and you will gain weight. So you'd have to play with that a little bit to make sure you're still getting a lot of fat and make sure that you're not getting too many carbs, too many calories, that sort of thing. But like you could increase the avocado if you didn't want to eat light salt. You could eat more avocado. That is actually a really good source of light salt, and it's pretty low carb as well, pretty fatty. The reason I didn't want to include a lot is because avocado is so dang expensive right now. Like we have these little tiny avocados at the store for like $1.30. It is so ridiculous. So yeah, that may not be an option. So yeah, there may be a way to play around this and optimize it so that you're able to meet every single thing from the food. But I don't really care about that in my everyday diet. I take a multi every day. I'm by no means perfect with my normal diet, so I don't really expect this diet to be perfect either. And I'm totally fine with taking a multi to make up for the little, deficiencies and things here and there. And even taking choline every other day. I mean, I've been doing that anyway. Not now, but I was while pregnant and breastfeeding. So that's not a big deal for me. And we already have light salt anyway. So like none of this is a huge deal. But if you are, looking to do this in a more whole way, not supplementing for everything, you definitely have to play around with this for some more. And it may not be possible, it may not be possible to keep your carbs low enough and get enough fat and meet all of your needs for all of these different vitamins. I don't know. So vegan keto can be done, low saturated fat keto can be done, plenty of fiber keto can be done, but just because something can be done doesn't mean it should be done. This diet is just so restrictive. I really, a short-term thing, it'd probably be okay. Again, as long as you're taking B12 and you're monitoring your nutrient intake, it'd probably be fine, but I can't imagine for a long term. I know some people have said they do long term. I don't know about vegan, but like a regular ketogenic, but I cannot imagine it. But if you want to do it, if you're interested in it, I would definitely recommend talking to an RD. Although they're probably just going to tell you not to do it. So this blog by a patron of mine, actually, an RD, she shared this with me, and it's very useful, particularly the daily food list, where it shows you certain, vegan foods that are keto friendly and kind of gives you an idea of how much to eat. That is super, super helpful. Also, the, what is it called? I think Meat-Free Keto has some helpful vegan recipes. Not all vegan, there's some vegetarian stuff on there as well, with like honey and whatnot. Although like a lot of the recipes are quite high in saturated fat. She has these like red velvet coconut things, and it looks and sounds so delicious. It's like all coconut, all saturated fat. All that said, I'm actually gonna try it because I'm a crazy person. No, looking at this stuff, watching the What I Ate Today, did I mention that? Of I can't remember her name, but watching her vegan keto, and it looks really good, because I mean, you've seen my diet. I eat a lot of fat. I already like eating a lot of fat. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of intriguing to me. I like doing weird experiments and stuff with diet. I don't know why. I've always liked it. If you guys have been following me for a while, you might remember me doing stuff like that randomly. And I haven't done one of those in a really long time, like years, I think. And so I think I'm due for one. So I'm going to try it, and I'm trying it tomorrow, actually. So by the time you're watching this, I'm already doing it and probably hating myself and being really sad that I can't have tasty carby things. But yeah, if you are interested in that, let me know in the comments, and I'll, do some update videos and try to, track what I'm eating and talk about it, and, how terrible it is and whatever else. So yeah, if you're interested, just let me know. And I guess that's it. I guess the last thing I'll say is that it has been really fun reading through all of the low carb and ketogenic stuff, and like reading people talking about, like, God, the things that they eat. It's just nauseating. Just like, oh, you're not getting enough fat, just, eat a few tablespoons of oil. And like, sometimes I just eat spoonfuls of mayonnaise to make sure I get enough fat. It's like, oh my God, if you have resorted to eating spoonfuls of mayonnaise for your health, like, maybe something's wrong, right? Maybe you should take a step back and reanalyze your life choices. And in the same vein, if you're like eating low fat and you're looking like you're afraid to eat a tiny handful of almonds, maybe take a step back. maybe something is very wrong here. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, comments and questions down below. And again, let me know if you want to see the ketogenic diet stuff. I don't know. I may just decide, you know what, I don't want to do it. That would not be too surprising. I may wake up tomorrow and be like, no, I really just want like a bagel with peanut butter on it. No, I changed my mind. We'll see though. But yeah, let me know. And comments and questions, or just said that. Subscribe if you want to subscribe, of course, do that. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. Thanks again, everybody. And I'll have a new video very soon.